Tosh, how are you, my friend?
What's up, man?
Hi, buddy. You handsome devil. What's new? How's life?
Oh man, it's been busier than ever, but and then Hobart would be listening to me right now and say, it's not busy, Tosh, it's productive. And I'm like, well, it's probably a combination of both, but so many great things going on. And now we're getting into event season. So it's just what it is, man. You just keep doing the best you can, right?
We got the first diesel day out of the country, right?
We do.
Where's that at? Not the one in Africa. Where is it?
We're going to Lisbon, Portugal for 2 weekends in a row, back to back.
Yeah.
I gotta start promoting that thing.
It's
my media guy, he's a little slow. He's like, I message him all the time and he takes like 3 weeks to get back to shit. It's like this fucking guy.
We know him. You got it.
They know all about that. Yeah.
What's up with you guys? It's cool. I haven't seen Chucklesworth in forever. We talk about him quite a bit. Dustin, Virgil, and James and stuff. And I see Carrie for breakfast. I haven't seen you in a hot minute though, Tone. What are you doing?
You know what's funny? You know what's funny, Tosh?
Yeah, I'm on my way to nowhere.
We didn't work out, or we didn't work seminars. I feel like whatever, the good Lord, divinity, whatever you might want to put me and you together in a seminar every once in a while, because I needed it. I absolutely fucking needed some Tosh in my life. And I have so many things I've learned from that. And then when you started your podcast, I was like, I'm going to fucking listen to every single episode. And then I gave it to like 20 dudes I would consider close, like friends. And it was funny because I'm full disclosure. Some of the guys go, dude, I couldn't follow a single thing he was fucking saying. And then I had half of them were like guys who like to hunt and fish, and just like one of my electrician buddies, he was like, dude, I understand everything he's saying. He's like, I'm playing this thing in my car on repeat. It's the only thing I listen to. It was just so funny because you have the feel to be like out in outer space, can't understand a damn word. And then half of like emotionally, it hit them so hard. So like, man, I got to get back on listening to that thing. Are you still putting that out?
Funny you say that. Dustin Virgil, right? He sends me a text message on this group thread with Hobart and a couple others. And he's like, hey, Tosh, I need to start doing a podcast again, blah, 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 blah. And he couldn't have sent that text to me at a more worse time, because I've already got like a million things going on. And it's the last thing I needed to hear was telling me I needed to do something else, and I'm not doing something that they're counting on me to do, that there's value. And I didn't snap or anything, but I was like really not my usual self. And I was like, yeah, I'll get to it, and it's something that's in the back of my mind that's a high priority. And again, I'll listen to Hobart's, well, if it's a high priority, you'd be doing it. And is it a high priority? And then I hear Chris Smith saying all his things. I'm like, hey, fuckers, it is. But what's a high priority to me and what my responsibilities and obligations for these other things are, that over prioritize what I want to do. Well, if you want time to do it, you'll make time. Yeah, great. With the 47 minutes of extra time that I have in any 24-hour block, I'll try to make the time. You know what I mean? And I was really grumpy. And then James, being James, right? He texts me one-on-one, hey, bud, like, hey, big fish, you doing okay? Can I help you with anything? And it's just like, hey, that's the kind of people that we're surrounded with, right? Like, they just love you and they care about you. And but anyways, yeah, I've got note cards and Post-it notes of all these things that I want to talk about, and get that podcast jamming. And Jay Vera came over to the house and built the hardwood wall so that I could do the podcast and record it and look pretty. And I haven't done anything with it except shoot 2 videos. But and that was almost a year ago, Jay?
Yeah.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah.
Is the office floor done? That's what matters.
It is. Yeah, I did the floor.
Good. That's a good.
I got one then, because it's funny you talk about Dustin and how they're giving you shit, because it's funny to me, being a dad of 3 now, losing my mind, Tosh. So I'm a dad of 3, Tosh. I don't know if you know that.
I know.
3 kids, 3,
and they're not young anymore.
They're very young, 4, 2, and 10 months, but
not from when I first knew you had the first one, and it was this big, and you were the brand new dad with your little daddy jumper suit and wearing the baby up front, and you were wearing your fluorescent socks and trying to do all this cool shit. I remember that.
Yeah. So anyway, it's like all these guys who try to hit up the kingpin, Brian Chontosh, right? So it's like an out alpha move. They're trying to be like, you have more time. They try to give you that. But what's funny to me is I've been seeing this in the culture, and I want to get your opinion. And I know this will probably send you in a good direction, because I want to hear, what's the opinion you have right now on this, I'm going to be the most alpha dominant male, whether it's start fighting or just doing stuff in the like, are you doing it for yourself? Are you doing it to impress others? Like, what is the actual, I like Cameron Haynes a lot. So this is the only reference I have. It's not like a diss or anything. I'm just, all right, so I'm going to go do something really hard in the woods. Okay. And it's super fucking cool. But also I look at in my life, like if I were to go do something super hard in the woods, I'm ignoring playing Magnetiles with my redhead in this season of life because it's very fucking hard, Tosh. When he's been bitching at me all day and all I want to do is have this part of my brain take over and go, I don't want to fucking be here right now. I want to blow up. I need to sit the fuck, like going into a cold tub sounds fantastic. Going to chop down a tree and hang out with you and throw in some upper deckies sounds fantastic. At the end of the day, like it's this balance that's just been, I don't know. You get what I'm saying? 100%. Take that and run with it. Please run with it.
Yeah, because I think there's a couple things going on all in that same conversation that helps us not sort of untangle it. And let's go with the alpha stuff first. I'm a big fan of Cam Haynes. I've met him a few times. We've done some things together. We ran Moab together. He beat me, obviously. And I know him from a long time ago into where he's at and what he's doing today, right? I believe Cam is doing the things he's doing because he believes in it and he's alpha and all those good things because it's in him. And then as he's grown, why can't the power of the word and be involved where he's also doing it for the marketing, the promotion to influence others. And he lives in this balance actually as a human being in both. But he's lately getting a lot of bad rap because, oh, he's a sellout or, oh, he's just doing this and he's just a promoter and a marketer and da-da-da-da. Well, no. He's still both. Mm. But people kind of pay attention to the other. Is he really doing it because he wants to do it or this or that? Or is he doing it for other people and the showmanship and this and that? The thing with Cam and many like him, it is genuine, right? And we all just do the best we can with what we have based on our priorities and our needs. What the problem is when we allow other people's opinions to influence how we choose to put our priorities, right? Mm. And then the question then becomes, well, why am I using some stranger's opinion or some stranger's, public, whatever, to dictate what and where and how I want to prioritize? Hey, guess what? I want to sit on the couch, eat potato chips, and do Legos with my little dude. And I want to be out in the woods and taking pictures of it and promoting it all over my socials so that I can, there should be no judgment, right? If you're doing it genuinely. Now there's a whole host of other people that are hollow in doing what they're doing and they're absolutely phony and they're actually toxic, right? And they do it under this guise of, hey, this is what being an alpha is and this is doing alpha things. And it's like, actually it's not, right? And then they hyper index over there. And then it gives that stereotype rubs off on these other people that are doing things absolutely genuine. And I won't talk about those names, right? They're all out there. But then again, even if I do talk about those names, that's just my perception and either my lack of understanding or knowing who they are personally. And so then I'm making snap judgments. And so I put myself back in check. Like there's this one guy that I can't stand at all. And I also started thinking like, well, I've never really met him. I know people that have and work with them and call out a lot of shit. And I'm very privy to a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't have a relationship with him to be able to form an educated opinion. Right. Mm. And so then it's really just worth bullshit. And then if I want to run my mouth about my opinion, I'm actually doing harm, So that's like one piece of a conversation point. The other is, what is being an alpha? Like this whole alpha male thing. Like, so the latest trend now is, there's no, alphas aren't alphas. It's a sigma. The sigma is that, and everybody wants to put a label on something, and it's not cool to be an alpha anymore, right? Like you need to be a sigma male, like because they are the alphas of the alphas, and they do.
What's a sigma?
Google it. Like everybody's doing it now on the internet. Has sigma male, the sigma male, toxic masculinity, all that stuff. Like man uncivilized. Like pick all the bullshit. All it is bullshit. Mm-hmm. Right? Like what is being a man to you? Show up that way.
A sigma male is described as a masculine man who is independent and solitary.
That's the sigma?
That's the sigma.
AKA's got no friends. I get it. That makes sense.
I think how I understand this whole Sigma thing that's gaining traction. Everybody's like, oh, I don't want to be, because they don't want to be the alpha anymore because everybody's overplayed the alpha. So they got to identify something different. So we're going to put a new label on it. And everything that everybody associates as a negative, right? They've put it under an umbrella of that's toxic masculinity, right? And they've started to erode what being an alpha is, male or female, right? It's a non-gender actually concept, but we like to put it under male. And all the negative stuff, they umbrella it under toxic masculinity, and they associate that with being an alpha male. And so they got to create something else. So we're going to call it the Sigma, that is not all the negative stuff of the alpha, so that we can get away from the toxic masculinity. And then we can, like, hey, you want to know what being an alpha male is? Being confident, caring, loving, having humility, being vulnerable, doing hard stuff, embracing challenge, growing, like having a mindset of tolerance and respect, common decency and courtesy. Like, that's all that is. And showing up in a certain way that allows others to feel safe, valued, empowered, right? Like, but we distort it, it's basically Western culture distorts everything that was pure in the wild. That's how I look at it.
Since we're talking about this, Tosh, one of the frameworks that's central to your work is the mind's mind. And that's something that I became familiar with during my time with you. How do you, because I feel like that's like zooming out, right, from this talking point here. Can you kind of describe what that is and for the listeners that don't know, like, and how does that influence our thoughts and actions?
Yeah. Are we like live and recording and doing this? I thought we were just bullshitting.
No, that's how it works.
Hey, let me put my professional pants on and then recurate myself, like
that was so elegant. I love how you
fantastic. You've been doing push-ups before this, didn't you?
I got my muscle shirt on, my muscle shirt by Rogue on. Yeah. I pulled this out. They gave it to me for Christmas, and I pulled it out for the first time the other day. And Nicole looks at me and she's like, "Oh, wow, you look good in that color. Why don't you ever wear that color?"
I second that. You look pretty. You look real good in that color.
I've worn it for 3 days straight.
Nice little color
palette. I can probably smell it through this camera. You gave me that compliment. I know you didn't take it off, just like your favorite underwear.
Yeah.
But, back on track.
Okay. The mind's mind. It's this. It's how I process stuff that has been written about in literature and science in many different ways, right? Like theology, whatever. I just happen to use my experiences and use myself as the laboratory and the things that I've done, the challenges that I face with not living up to what I think my full potential is, or falling short on expectations and things like that, right? And, with a military background, with ultra endurance events and things like that, I started to try to understand myself a little bit better and what's holding me back, why am I making these bad decisions over and over? What is the conversation? What's the internal dialogue? What is the whatever it is? And over a handful of years, I just started paying attention to it more and studying it and thinking and being really, really introspective. And I've come up with the mind's mind concept. And really, that is, I'm me. I have a mind, and the mind has a mind of its own. Right? So if I'm using my left hand and my right hand, we'll call my mind's mind over here on the left side, and we'll use my mind in the middle, and we'll use the me on the far right. And anytime we're faced with challenge, right? Stress, we're under duress, whatever, like this mind's mind kicks in and it starts to inform the mind, right? On what to do. And a lot of times that comes at odds with what I want to do in the conversations I'm having with my mind. So who is this I? We're human beings. We're ambitious. We have dreams. We have goals. We have things we like, things we want to like. We have all those things, and it's very, very real and in the moment, right? The mind's mind is over here on the other side of the mind, and it's wired through tens of thousands of years of growing into a human being for survival, safety, and comfort. And if we understand that the mind's mind always has an audience with the mind, and it's trying to get our mind to make decisions or to receive the world and the signals that the world is giving us, and to interpret the signals that our body is giving us, trying to inform us, right? And it's guiding those things towards survival, safety, and comfort. And they can come at odds with like, hey, I want to achieve, or I want to accomplish this, or I want to accomplish that, right? If all I had to do was listen to those things, I could potentially be putting myself into compromising situations. So the mind's mind is actually critical. It's not a bad guy at all, right? And we call it survival, safety, and comfort in that order because we need the mind's mind. We would be extinct if we didn't have the mind's mind, because we would not be able to succeed with high probability through infinite number of opportunities to survive these dangerous and complex situations. One step below that, safety. Our mind's mind actually comes into play to inform our mind, right? That our mind is the one that actually regulates us and has us do things for safety. Oh, this is an unsafe situation. I'm sensing that I'm unsafe, or that the risk is so high. We tend to think about those in terms of shaking, hyperventilating, butterflies in the stomach, anxiety, low grade anxiety. When we start to feel that, that's our mind's mind informing our mind, our system, that, hey, potentially we need to do something different because this isn't safe, right? And then step below that is comfort. And you can already see, you read these books, The Comfort Crisis. I'm a huge fan of Easter's Comfort Crisis. And he explains it in his way. And it's like, we make these comfort-based decisions. Well, were we really making a conscious decision? Or was the mind's mind winning the conversation with our mind to make that decision? Because if it was me informing my mind on what to do, because I'm ambitious, I'm courageous, I have goals, whatever we just talked about, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have made that comfort-based decision. So where do comfort-based decisions come from? Well, it's the mind's mind has priority over our mind and not our heart, our goals, our sense of morality, what's right and wrong, those things. That's the me constructs. I've created those constructs. And the mind sits in the middle of those two things, and it regulates, it mediates between the me and the survival, safety, comfort.
So what if your mind's mind is auto-regulated on because I want to stop you. That's so fucking good. God, I can't wait to listen to you again. So the mind's mind auto-regulation, are you with me? Survival piece. Let's say I'm going through something, all right? And I start shaking, and it's an auto-regulation of this is dangerous, but it's not actually dangerous. There is no danger. There's no present danger, but the body is taking over. You feel me? Like, this shouldn't be something. The auto regulation's off. And then also on the flip flop, and you're going into something that might be nerve wracking, or, like, for example, speaking in front of 200 people at the summit for Rogue, like, literally I could not have been more unnervous, if that makes sense. But maybe something a couple days prior where I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Am I in a fucking panic attack for no reason? It's like an auto regulation incorrect. You with me?
With you.
Like, how does one get into that on accident?
I think because we're associating certain things with different things that shouldn't be associated with, and that's due to habit, just behavior over time, and then boom, and then we become creatures that are more suspect to letting the mind's mind, and the mind's mind doesn't have to be as sharp as it needs to be if we develop skill sets to be able to deny it the ability to win an argument that it doesn't deserve to win. Wow. Right. So really what you need to do, Chucklesworth, is you need to come to Diesel Day. You'll get the full lecture. You'll get the full experience. You'll get the mentorship, the guidance through a practical application thing. And it's like, holy shit, I understand the mind's mind. But let's do it this way. In a survival situation, don't worry about it. Your mind's mind is going to kick in, and you're going to survive to the degree that it's just the fates of the gods that you're going to survive or not, right? And how you can increase your chances is through capability, and that's practice through different experiences. But at the end of the day, your mind's mind is, I've only met maybe one person or two people that can use some framework to beat the mind's mind for a survival situation. It is that good. it's essential. That's why we're where we're at, right? So we don't even need to worry about that. It's the 8-year-old boy that's gone missing in the glacial national forest, and 2 weeks later he's found alive. His mind's mind is so good. It's the 70-year-old grandfather that comes up on an accident scene, and there's somebody trapped underneath a vehicle, and he deadlifts the vehicle up enough so that, right, like they can pull him out. Like it's the mind's mind has kicked in and access things inside of us that we just can't. The more you train, the better you get at accessing those things. Some people have greater predisposition to access different parts of our body that we've been dulled to. You can use an example of the Native Americans 200, 300 years ago, right? Before we came on board and did our things, like you could hear danger coming. They could feel it. They could smell it. They could sense it. But over time, due to conveniences, culture, situation, growth, all these things, like they've lost the ability, right? There's so many stories through American history and literature of these pioneers and these that have been immersed in nature that they could feel. I've been in the woods. I don't know if you have been, but you ever get that feeling like somebody's watching you or there's something's just not right? Like you didn't hear it, smell it, see it on a conscious level, but for some reason you look over your shoulder and it's like, oh, wow, there's a mountain lion right there, right? Like that's the mind's mind at play in survival. Don't worry about it. Over time, as we've grown in society and because of all these things in society, we've dulled its ability to pick up on those senses. And it's gotten so used to not having to be sharp that it sits in the safety loop or the comfort loop. And in most people's cases, I'm finding it's sitting in the comfort loop. And unless we exercise challenging the mind's mind ability to win in an argument, it doesn't need to grow, much like your muscles. If you don't do curls all the time, you're not going to have curls. But through doing curls, you get stronger at doing the curls. Same concept. As we develop these skills and these strategies to deny the mind's mind an opportunity it doesn't deserve to win, right? It has to get stronger. It's working out. And so by not working out, we dull it at survival. We dull it at safety, right? How many, and I'm not basher of generations and, the whole Gen X, Gen Me, Gen Z, whatever's right. But over time, like we find people that are much younger than us, they don't have a body of life experience or whatever, that they don't even understand what risk is. They don't even have a sense of what safety is. Because living in these worlds of hyper security and safety that they don't even have to engage the thought patterns to discern risk assessment and good decision making. Society creates all these rules. So all we have to do is follow the rules. We don't have to think critically about the intent behind the rule. So everybody likes to make rules to protect us from ourselves. And in fact, it's actually making us weaker. It's okay to burn your hand on the stove. Like you let your son burn his hand on the stove one time. You tell him no, but at a certain point, you got to let him have the experience. So then he knows why the rule don't touch the stove is there, understanding the why, right? The next layer down, that safety piece, that's been so dulled, and everybody's a safety officer, right? Like, oh, this is unsafe. And a lot of people use this is unsafe, not because it's a safety issue, because it's a comfort issue. And we know that being comfortable isn't the right way. But if we call it's a safety issue, we don't get to do it. But it's really a mechanism of comfort. Mm-hmm. And the mind's mind has realized that that's the situation. So all it's going to do is going to talk to your mind. It's a safety thing. It's a safety thing, but it's not. It's a comfort thing. And you want to do some sleep deprivation and some cold, and it will make walking up your flight of stairs from the bathroom to the bedroom the biggest safety violation in the world. When somebody is so sleep deprived, simple tasks like walking and talking, it's not safe. It's not safe. I've been there, right? I've been on teams adventuring, and in the beginning we're rappelling and we're whitewater rafting. We're doing all these things it's like, wow, this is truly like dangerous, right? And then as you get further along in the race and you're on day 5 and you're at mile 700 and whatever it is, everything's a safety concern. Oh, we can't lift this box up right now because it's too heavy. We're going to hurt our back. It's not safe. Let's not do that. Our mind is saying it's not safe, but it's a comfort thing because we're tired, we're cold, we're sleep deprived. And when we start understanding how that flows, survival, safety, comfort. And so what I've done is inspected a lot of the places that I've lived through where I was successful, unsuccessful, where I failed to meet the expectations that I would have of myself for some degree of accomplishment or whatnot. And what were the mechanisms at play? And you do the best you can, because the luxury of time always distorts and invites bias, right? But I started to find a trend and a pattern. And that's how I created like this mind's mind concept. There's other things. It's not a good angel, bad angel on your two shoulders, right? It's not that. It pulls a little bit from that concept. It pulls a little bit from some Freud. It pulls a little bit from how the brain actually works. You know, Arthur C. Brooks talks about it a lot in his books. And you can pick literature that I'm not even, it's in a lot of the classics. It's in mythology, right? And so I'm just kind of pulling this stuff and repackaging it, not because I'm a thief, but because I'm making it make sense to me so that it's applicable and appropriate so that I can use it in my everyday life. Like I can't use something else if it doesn't have meaning and I can touch it for myself. So I repackage it up to understand it in a way that's useful to me. And I came up with the mind's mind, and I came up with the checking in with the left hand material, which uses, it's a framework that uses your hand, and each finger of the hand represents a strategy to be able to use to inspect something that's going on so that you can deny the mind's mind the opportunity to have undue influence when it is not appropriate, when it doesn't deserve to have priority decision-making power. And that's what the framework is, the checking with left hand and the mind's mind. And the one missing point that we didn't talk about was you don't ever get to know what the mind's mind is telling your mind. You only have a conversation what you and your mind share. That's it. The mind's mind gets to know the conversation between it and the mind, but you don't have firsthand information what the mind's mind is telling the mind. Through training, through practice, through good habits, through mentorship, you can start to infer potentially what the mind's mind is telling the mind, because it's making the conversation you're having with it go in a certain direction, or it's influencing your actions in a way that you weren't even aware of, right? And so then you try to infer what that conversation is, and then you implement your strategy to reinform the mind and get back control. It's coming from a rational place and not an emotional place. It's a lot of different things, right? We're abbreviating here. And you only get to know then secondhand. Yeah. Anything secondhand is always suspect of interpretation, right? The telephone game. If I whispered in your ear, you whispered in Jay's, Jay whispered in Terry's, Terry whispered in Tony's, Tony whispered in mine, something, it has to go through interpretation, 4 steps, 5th to get back to me. And it's a completely different story. It's the telephone game that we played when we were in kindergarten, 1st grade, right? So you only get to know that conversation secondhand. Well, better you get at denying the mind's mind those wins it doesn't need to win, the better your mind's mind gets at coming up with techniques, tactics, strategies to influence your mind. So it's this constant dance. Ultimately, the dance is all about making both ends of the equation better, right? We get better at defeating the mind's mind. The minds get better at challenging us. It's informing the mind so that when we are in situations to either achieve, to make our goals, to stay safe, to survive, whatever the things are, we're better as a system. We're better as a unit. And you don't get better by practicing it through just listening to me talk in a podcast or reading a book. You actually have to put it into practical application. Whatever that practical application looks in your everyday life, right? I tend to use the physical domain, like doing some hard physical experience for a lot of different reasons, to be able to create situations and opportunities for you to practice the framework around the mind's mind concept. And the consistency is this framework works. And this is a Clint Bruce and I were talking on a mentor call a long time ago, 5-6 years ago, phenomenal dude. And, and I use 1,000 words to say one thing. And he's really good at saying one thing to say 1,000 things, using one word to say 1,000 things. And he's like, Tosh, what I'm hearing you saying is you're leveraging your experiences from the battlefield and the ball field and making them appropriate for the boardroom and the breakfast table. And I'm like, holy shit, that's exactly it. This framework works on the battlefield, on the ball field, in your boardroom, and at the breakfast table. Your battlefield, in my history, in my past, that was combat, right? In my today, it's a different battlefield. It doesn't have to be like, no kidding, military combat for everybody, but we all have battlefields, right? We all have opportunities to face an antagonist and win. That's our battlefield, right? We all have ball fields. That's the arena of play, of relaxation, of sport, of just trying to accomplish something via pastime or passion. The boardroom, that could be your profession. That could be when you go to work, dealing with your boss, dealing with your subordinates, dealing with your peers. That could be, for me, my boardroom is that in the entrepreneurial world, but it's also when I go down to Boulder and I deal with a bunch of strangers. That's my boardroom, right? It's not a intimate personal relationship. So that's what the boardroom represents. The breakfast table is my intimate personal relationships, right? It's Nicole, it's my son, my daughter, it's my closest friends. It's the people that I keep around that I love, that have genuine relationships with, right? And so this concept and this theme, I'm a big fan of consistency. So instead of memorizing and practicing and habituating 4 different strategies with 4 different frameworks, because now they're situational, if I can have one framework that can be the base level template that gets me in the 80% solution across as many things possible, well, that's the framework that I should spend the most amount of time cultivating, nourishing. And so this whole mind's mind concept, the checking in with the left hand, it's consistent and it works across battlefield, ball field, boardroom, breakfast table. Anyways, Jay, thanks for that.
Teed it right up. That was a good one.
Wow. Damn.
I'll send you your check. I'll send you your check next week.
Yeah, that was a great lead in there. There's a lot in that, and God, there's a million ways. There was things I wanted to talk about before that, but then, yeah, Jay teed that one up perfectly to kind of lead into that. All of us are going to end up at the ranch doing Diesel Day, and everybody listening to this, plug, go do Diesel Day. There's a lot of that mirrors a little bit of the story from like another brain, Paul Conti, and he kind of explains it as the iceberg model, right? Which is the mind's mind, often referred to as like the subconscious, that supercomputer is constantly processing. And I'm glad you brought up the part where, which is hilarious to see it in action, which is when the mind's mind has the audience of the mind, but the mind can never have the audience of the mind's mind, and vice versa. Because they basically talks about it in the middle there, which is the subconscious can be completely aware of what the conscious mind is up to, but the conscious mind is never aware of what the subconscious mind is up to. And essentially he uses the iceberg as the framework, and basically the subconscious lives below the water, and it's the big part of the iceberg, but I don't need to tell you guys that part. But the water is the defense mechanism, which is, the thing that kind of separates the two of them. And the way to break through that, which you touched on a couple of things in there. One, that it's a trainable skill set. It's like a muscle, right? Because like the first piece of this is so huge in terms of the mind's mind. It's one of the reasons why the left-hand curriculum is so important, is it's awareness, right? Because like until somebody starts to see, because you can't know what the mind's mind is doing, but there is a way actually to see it. And if you can step back from what you do and you can start to observe instead of participate, you can start to see your patterns and your routines and your rituals, you can start to become aware of like, it's doing the thing again. It's solving for comfort. It's solving for safety. You're probably never going to notice that it's solving for survival, but you're probably not that aware of it in that situation. But the 4 B's, the boardroom, the ball field, the breakfast table, et cetera, that's, I think, so important, because I think a lot of times when we talk about the Diesel Day stuff, it does get a little bit lost in like the arduous physical task of it all. But it's magical in terms of its ability to produce a micro dose that you can kind of control and deliver at a level that is so particularly acutely valuable to people. Because I see this in my work nonstop across the board. The boardroom and the breakfast table is really my eminent domain where I live with most of the people that I work with. And their mind's mind wholly runs the show, right? And in that situation, it's an interesting one because they're like, why on earth would I be solving for, or for lack of a better word, sabotaging for these habits of comfort? They're like, I would never make that choice. And I'm like, you would, because if I drag you out in the woods at 3 a.m, you're going to do the same thing, but in a physical setting, right? And they'll be like, I don't think I would do that. And so it's fascinating to watch people do it. And to your point, like the curriculum, the left-hand curriculum, I think is an amazing framework. Shout out Diesel Day, everybody go register for it. To learn how to, in a setting that is self-actualization more so than self-awareness, because one of my favorite quotes from you, this is knowing in the way of knowing, putting knowing in the way of knowing, right? A lot of people, I think, they get in the way of this conversation a lot in terms of like, they want to self-identify with a limitation. And then that limitation prevents them from ever addressing or solving for that limitation. And what you've created with the left-hand material is a way to baseline all of us, get us all to our purest form, support somebody in a moment when they don't feel supported, believe in them when they don't believe in themselves, let them expose themselves to their mind's mind, tell them that they're okay, watch them work through that, and then develop the skill set to replicate that in the rest of their life moving forward, which is a very super condensed version of like what kind of happens. But to me, that piece of it's huge. And I'm glad Jay teed this up because I was going to talk about some other stuff. But in terms of like, Tosh, how do you pick your priorities? But this is a way better conversation, which is, really like, what do you think, I suppose, where do you, outside of physical activity, which one of the domains would you say is where the mind's mind is the most prevalent and most, I don't want to say defeating, but most present?
Overactive.
Overactive is a good
Yeah.
point.
I want to pause on that for a second. I'm still processing some of the stuff you were saying without having to go solve everything. The Diesel Day is the start. When you finish Diesel Day, that's the start of the rest of your journey.
Yeah.
Right? People come to Diesel Day, I got it. I got the material. I got it. I fixed. Or great, I got the A+. Now I can move on to the next thing. That's not the intent. The intent is to arrange an engagement with you and yourself for the first time in a long time that is absent of a lot of the signals and noise that you latch on to self-identify with, for whether it's identity or excuse or rationalization or whatever, right? And I can pick apart that for you. And so that's what this is. It's a, hey, this is just the first step. You don't even know where your first step is until you've actually had the experience, right? You have to introduce the concept, and then you have to introduce the opportunity to feel and know and intellectualize the concept. And what that does, it's like, it's the cave. It's the allegory of the cave, right? Mm-hmm. Don't care whether you want to stay in the cave or be outside of the cave, but you need to know that you're even in a cave first. Then you make the decision. I don't care what the decision is, right? And that's the whole philosophical thing about the allegory of the cave. We don't have to keep going on with that, right? You were bringing in a question about where it is, because I don't think the question was right. It didn't make sense to me.
He said, here, I'll make it make sense. He said, where is the mind's mind outside of physical activity more overactive and hyperactive? So it's easier to get to the mind's mind through physical activity. I think you proved that with Diesel Day and all the things. Okay. Yeah. No, so what he's saying is like,
it's my mechanism.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like I'm a master at designing and creating and setting up situations to be able to access this concept. Mm-hmm. It's largely, I do it this way because that's what I'm really fucking good at, this way, because it resonates with me. Doesn't mean that there's not other ways to access it or that it doesn't show up in other ways. It's more visible in the physical aspect to be able to point it out so that we can attach some sort of practical, experiential situation. We can capture it and then we can go back and study it, right? Back in my military days when we were running shoot houses, and I would observe a shoot house, and you'd have a bunch of students running around through the shoot house, and then you would come back and you would debrief the shoot house. And they don't agree with anything you're saying because they couldn't see it. They just had to take it for granted. and they had to just trust that you were the instructor and this and that, and say, hey, I said you actually crossed over when you should have button hooked, or you didn't do this. Well, no, I did, because they were so in it.
Yeah.
When we set up cameras in the shoot houses and we started doing our debriefs by playing the film, just like the NFL does, right? Imagine using the same analogy as with the NFL, right? Like studying film. You couldn't debrief plays and games and stuff like that if you didn't have film, because everybody on the field and stuff like that has a different perception of what was actually happening, because they're seeing it through their eyes. They're not seeing it through the big picture. Mm-hmm. So when you start recording it and you start studying the film and then you do your debrief, because it's like, hey, no, you see right there, what was going through your mind? What were you thinking in that moment? And even then we're not perfectly clear, but we're way better clear because we were able to capture the visual. Add that when you're doing a diesel day experience with a whole bunch of other people in the physical world, where they can see other people, and then you can be the mentor and point out what other people are going through because they can see other people doing it, and then you can make it relevant to what you already know this person's doing or about to do, right? It's a way to capitalize on that process. That's what we do, right? So it's not that the mind's mind is overactive or more dominant or shows up like in the physical world more than any other places. It's just the place that I can get to, given my talents and expertise, to set the situation, to introduce the material and the concepts so that you realize you're in the cave and that there's a whole outside still, right? And this is a battlefield, right? This is a battlefield that doesn't always take casualties, but sometimes it does, right?
Yeah.
And each individual's battlefield's a lot different. For Jay Vera, well, for Tony, your fucking head's a mess, bro. In a good way. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, this mind's mind shit's not showing up for you all the time, every day in the physical space. Like, it's the stuff that's going on in your head, right? And so what we're doing is we're creating a physical experience that you're having that's appropriate and pertinent to take the physical takeaways in because of the physical context. But I know through conversations with you and the people that you've brought from your community to the diesel days that you're using this. The mind's mind is super hyperactive for you in a lot of other places. You know what I mean? And that's yours. That's your battlefield. And you have a ball field and a boardroom and a breakfast table, right? So I don't think the mind's mind is more dominant in any other space as a standard or as a whole. It's all different for each of us, and it all ebbs and flows depending on what we're going through in a moment. We might be going through a really intense spiritual moment. We might be going through a really, really intense emotional relationship moment. We might be going through a really physical, arduous moment. And even though we're in a physical, arduous moment, doesn't mean that there isn't a spiritual and an emotional and an intellectual component still involved. It just means that the physical is dominant at the time, right? It's not like the mind's mind just shows up in isolation given one specific category. It permeates through all of it all at once inside of us, and it's always informing. And that further, validates my reasons for consistency. It's just consistency, not on a horizontal space. It's now in a vertical space or whatever space is outside of those two spaces. I don't know, diagonal space, whatever. But I hear people tell me all the time, real quick, Jay, and then you, but they'll do a diesel day and they'll show up a certain way in a moment of hardship, struggle, whatever that is, physically, emotionally. And a lot of people actually have these incredibly spiritual and emotional moments that are incredibly powerful. And it has nothing to do, it's just the physical fatigue and the stress or whatever allowed them to have access to it for the first time in a long time. And it can be intense, right? So much that we're bringing on some clinical people to be part of the Hardway Project Diesel Day thing, because we realize we could be opening up some doors that are not in my wheelhouse or my professional space. And so we want to have people in that space because that's what's appropriate. But they'll tell me, that's not who I am. That's not who I am. I'm not that person at 3:34 in the morning on the trail with doing this and that, and they show up a certain way, and then they come back and they beat themselves up. And they'll talk to you and you'll talk to them afterwards. Maybe it affects the rest of their diesel day. Maybe it waits until after the diesel day. They pull you aside one-on-one and they go back to that moment. And I'm like, oh man, I'm so sorry. Or, oh man, I'm just really struggling with this. That's not who I am. That's not who I am. And I'm like, it absolutely is who you are. It's not who you want to be in every situation, ideally, but it is who you are. You actually had a moment to meet that person for the very first time, or maybe you've known it inside of you all along, but you feel embarrassed or ashamed, or you don't feel that it's appropriate or whatever. And so you've been trying to protect against being that person. And I'm not saying being that person and showing up that way is the right way to show up in 99.99% of all situations, but that doesn't mean that that's not who you are.
Yeah.
And when you can learn to accept that, that takes a tremendous amount of stress and resources that you're spending off of you, a tremendous amount of burden to just be able to accept it, right? Accept it. Hey, you know what? That is who I am. Now, instead of spending time shielding myself from being that, I can learn how to manage it, negotiate with it, right? Cultivate it to show up when it's supposed to show up in a more productive way. Mm-hmm. I have opportunity then to actually do something with it constructively instead of being in denial. Right? Man, that's a lot of the middle finger stuff from checking on the left hand. So yeah, hey, like I know who I show up. I know, right? When I get a certain way, or I'm subject to certain signals, noises, influences, stressors over a certain period of time, like I'm going to show up this way. It was a big part of me doing my psychological preparation for the row across the ocean. Knowing who I show up as when I'm 2 weeks into an event and frustrated and tired and sore, whatever the situation is, I can deny it. And you know what happens if I would have denied that? I would have showed up as that over and over again. And now I'm going to live a life of disappointment. Whereas if I say, hey, that's who I am in these moments, in these situations, what can I do to recognize that I'm approaching that moment ahead of time so that I can arm myself with some resources not to get to that point? Or when I feel that point is imminent, what do I need to do to de-escalate it? How can I improve my communication skills? How can I improve my personal relationship with myself? Like, so that I can then manage that instead of being in denial. And that was a large part of my preparation for rowing across the ocean. Was like, okay, Tosh, this is who you are in this and this and this. And how will it show up on day 23 in the middle of nowhere? How will it show up given so-and-so? Because I know how so-and-so is, and they get a certain way. And then that's a hook for me that pulls me towards that. And what do they need from me to de-escalate them? And it's actually helping me de-escalate or prevent myself from getting in a place where I then have to use my de-escalation practices for myself. My mind is hyperactive around that. And I would never understand why it was hyperactive around that until I actually finally decided to organize these thoughts this way. And this is me just sharing how I organize and frame my stuff. Right. So anyways, I don't know where I went with all that, but it was probably some good shit. Jake can make a second for that.
Well, being, observing the diesel day kind of behind the scenes with a camera and looking at it through my lens, there was a moment that caught my attention when you had an athlete who was struggling with some pull-ups. I'm not going to go into it, but there was some time on the clock still, and she felt that she was good, that she was comfortable, that she was good with the amount that she hit, and she was just going to wait until that clock hit 0 so she could move on to the next station. And she went up to you, talked to you a little bit about it, and you told her, you're like, you can do a couple more, you can hit that a few more times. And it's funny because like I just saw through my lens again, like she's like, oh yeah, I can do that. Right. Like, so she went from like this notion of like discomfort and like safety to like overriding her mind's mind to say, yeah, I can do more. Right. And then off she went and did those, 10 pull-ups, and so it's just interesting to see how just in an instance like that, how you can override your mind's mind by just checking in with the left hand again, like I'm good, right, with the thumb. I'm good. I can do this, you know? But sometimes we need that reinforcement of that person to tell us that we can do these things, right? Because our mind's mind gets too loud, and then safety and comfort seeps in, and then we're just like, all right, well, I'm just going to wait till the next station. You know, I'm good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I mean, in this case, it replicates over and over again in subtly different ways for each individual. Your strategies for helping an individual through that moment are different. It can be significantly different per individual, but subtly it's all the same concept and how it manifests. And it always falls into a couple of different categories, right? Like she just was renegotiating her goalposts. So her mind's mind was talking to her about comfort and safety, right? And what that was, it was at odds with her expectations of herself and her identity, her perceived identity of who she is in hardship and challenge and whatever, what she had for goals for herself. And then there's these subtle little things. Oh, well, I did 15 more pull-ups than I did the last time I did pull-ups. I must be good. I did 10 more pull-ups than so-and-so did, and he's a jacked CrossFit athlete. Hey, I'm feeling a little sore right now. Oh, hey, I need to save a little bit of my energy for the next task at hand. Like there's all of those conversations that are coming out. That's the mind's mind at work with the mind. And that's how it's coming out of your mouth. That's what's in your thoughts. Your mind's mind bought into those already because you lost touch with your intrinsic and extrinsic, or internal and external drivers. And in these times of challenge and hardship and struggle, adversity, pick one, right? Cold, wet, tired, it's dark, you're wet, it's hungry, you're whatever it is. We start to lose touch with the me side of things, and the mind's mind gets so much more ready and has a position to influence your mind and be that much more convincing because you're in a compromised state. And so the trick is just to get them out of that loop. And and I see it with myself all the time, every day. I deal with it every day, you know, and I just keep fighting it. And I have good days, I have bad days. And the days that I have better days at beating it, my mind's growing, getting stronger. And then it shows up. And then 3 weeks down the road, I find myself, oh, God damn, I did it. Oh, and then I've learned from it because now I'm aware of it. And then I just continue because you want to know what you've heard it before. The ultimate ultra endurance game is life. There's one finish line. Let's not be in a rush to get to that finish line. And let's understand that it's such a long ultra endurance event, this thing called life, that we're going to have highs and lows. And we're going to, and the thing is we just keep moving towards the finish line in a more capable, better positioned place for success, whatever success is, or wherever we want to identify a place to achieve some sort of success. Battlefield, ballfield, boardroom, breakfast table, and all of it all at once.
You know, I got to drop in 5. So I want to make sure, Tosh, before Big Fish, before this stuff, we worked a seminar together, and I'm not even going to pump you up. You're going to sleep really good knowing how much you helped me. You don't even have a concept, because I grew up, you know, my dad passed when I was real young, and I was always scared. I was always scared of everything. And then I used competition. This is stuff I know about myself, using your principles, but you know, I use competition as a warm blanket, because if I can win, I'm loved, because somebody in the stands is going to love me. My coach is going to love me. So I always went to men for that, coaches, you know. And I remember we were about to start Helen. This is when I was a regional athlete. And you were like, I'm going to fucking kick your ass so bad in this workout. He's like, you told me exactly what was going to happen. You're like, I'm going to sprint. You're going to get nervous. You're going to then, in front of all these people, like you really went there. And I loved it so much because I knew you were full of shit. And I'm like, well, force distance and time, the shit we're talking about, you know, sure as shit, you guys, this motherfucker ran an 800 faster than anyone I've ever seen on planet Earth. And I'm like, okay, well, he's going to, of course, break some of these pull-ups. Didn't break a single thing. I beat you by maybe 10 seconds in the very end. And after that day, that's when I started to realize, like, I think this man knows so much about life that I can gain just by wisdom. And you want to know what you described when you said you're working against the mind's mind, this constant balance. And the mind's mind gets stronger, but then my mind gets stronger. Dude, you just look at how fucking wise you are. It's wisdom. That's all it is. You keep that fight going, you just become a more wise, and genuinely useful human being. So before you were even doing this pen to paper, you were saving people like me, because I take those principles in my life every single day when I'm like, man, I just once again love you, brother.
Yeah, I love you too, dude. I appreciate that. And I don't remember you beating me, actually.
No, I beat you.
No,
I beat you.
I
beat you.
We'll go to the tape. I think we have to go to the tape on that one.
Oh man, I've got like
I
5
appreciate
things.
that, Andy.
Well, a couple of things. Like one, while Andrew's still here, you talk about like going off into the woods versus like being right there to play magnetiles, and like I think to what Tosh is speaking about, and the left hand material is new to me. Like I knew it existed, but I don't know it. So hearing some of it is great, but I have to spin it into what is it that I know already and how have I gotten to some of that? And for me, that's been more meditation, therapy, personal check-ins, right? Like, oh shit, I'm in a conversation, which is soon to be an argument with my 4-year-old. And why do I feel this escalation, right? That's not, and why are my survival instincts kicking in this moment? I am not at threat. Like it's like I'm good, but boy do I feel like I'm getting ready to fight. Right? It's wild. And so like my check-ins have to come even earlier than that, right? Which touches what you're saying. Like I know in day 23, well, I'm like, I know this dude's like an hour from bedtime. I know what's happening. I know what's coming. Right. I'm like, ooh, I probably need to step outside and take a couple of deep breaths. But to tie it back to like, can I be in the woods? Like, yeah, like it can't always just be magnetiles. It can't be what they need, because what they need from you is exactly what Tosh delivered to you during Helen, right? Unknowingly or knowingly, it's who you are when you show up, not that you're there doing anything, right? Because it's so much less about what you do, and it's so much more about who you are while you're doing it. And like, to me, that's what I take away from that whole conversation is like, all right, yeah, I really want to play magnetiles, but you know what? I'm really not in the space to do it. I actually need to go do something for me so that then I can give to you, right? Because if you can't give to yourself, and so that doesn't mean like you never play magnetiles again. It just means you need to carve out the time for yourself. And this isn't really about you, Andrew, as much as it is just like, can you make personal check-ins in life and decide, oh, I'm not right. I'm not ready to be here. I need to figure out what I need to give myself right now, which I imagine is a lot of the left-hand material. What do I need right now to be able to continue on in this situation, whatever that situation may be?
Mm-hmm. And here's the trick fuck, right? This is advanced material. You guys get this. This is exclusive for FitFiliate, right? Once you do that and you win, right? We're going to call it winning. It's not winning in the sense of like, I win, you lose. It's just like winning because I deserve to. Your mind's mind catalogs that loss and says, okay, cool. How can I use that then as my next strategy with the mind and get Carrie to think that he needs to do something for himself now. And that'll be
that son of a bitch.
That'll be the excuse that it uses to win the mind's mind and wins you. And then you find yourself inadvertently, unknowingly doing the same thing, because that's how the mind's mind works. Yeah. It's going to take its losses. It's going to take your wins and it's going to use them and twist them. And then because we're all in our own head, that's why I'm a head case. That's why people say, hey, Tosh is a fucking head case, right? Like you're going to spend the time now playing bullet. It's like, well, what's the right answer? It's actually not what you end up deciding to do. The right answer was the fact that you entertained the conversation consciously.
Well said. Because stoicism is the ultimate. What you just said, stoicism, that's the reason they got conquered, because they only spoke to the mind. They you know what I mean? Like they took the mind's mind out of it, and ultimately they got conquered because they're like, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Because they had to win against the mind's mind at all costs.
Yes.
They did not leave room for why the mind's mind is actually essential. I'm a huge Stoic, right? But understanding where it serves and where it doesn't, it's a great 80%, for me.
Right.
But that's it. And then you'll go into these head case things, and then you won't know I don't know what the right answer is. Am I doing it? Am I stopping because I got this? And you know what? I don't care what you do. All I care about is that you're having the conversation and you're making the decision as an active participant to do what you're going to do. Because then, and again, now here's the follow-on material, because then now I'm helping you take ownership and responsibility for the decision and not giving you the scapegoat. Because if you have a scapegoat all the time, you don't have the propulsion to go on a growth curve. You sit there and you stagnate, you cavitate right where you're at. So it's the fact that you're having so much less about the right answer. It's more about asking the right questions.
The superpower of being able to step into the active observer role versus the active participant role, which is something I've watched, explored, played with, seen happen firsthand in Diesel Day, watched happen with the clients. Like until it clicks to like your point where like that trick fuck comes up and you find yourself on accident completely engrossed in the participation. You're like, how the fuck did I end up back here again? I thought we had this sorted. But to your point, the win is like, if you can just process it, that's the win, right? If you can step away from it and be like, before I take action, let me step out of participation and let me process it for a minute. Let me observe this and be like, oh, here's how we got here again. And you do see it so much, which is definitely, I say it's like one of the superpowers of this generation. If you can get into that observer role, because now everything is so immersive. We're all participants, all super distracted. And it's a huge framework for sure to be able to get out of that role, even against a 4-year-old, Carrie.
Good. You there's just nobody else in my life that is less rational and is willing to attempt to hit and or yell at me. Right. Like I've carved out a pretty great life that's the only situation I end up in. Or maybe I'm not pushing the boundaries enough. I don't know.
It's funny to me. It's funny to me that you used, I found myself in fight or flight. I found myself in survival mode. You weren't anywhere near that. That was your mind's mind saying, hey, this isn't comfortable. I'm not going to win the comfort decision with Carrie. I'm not going to win the safety conversation with Carrie. I'm just going to go up and I'm just going to now just communicate survival. And that's how it showed up. You were not, because right, like you weren't.
Of course not.
You start to feel these things, but that's the mind's mind already knowing and already playing. Like, okay, boom, 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 boom. In order for me to get the win that I want to have, I'm going to make the conversation with the mind a survival situation, and then the mind is going to start to do all the regulatory things that it does that signals to you, right? The hyperventilating, the shaking, the frustration, the high blood pressure, the whatever it is. That's your mind's mind winning against the mind to signal to you, to convince you that you are in survival mode. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. I just need to find a really cool sciencey guy to then tie all, because Arthur C. Brooks does it, and I can only understand and follow when he goes in. Zoll does it a little bit and understanding the art and science of the brain, and like it all can be like technology reduced into the functions of hormones and electrical impulse, whatever, right? But I'm not going to try to pretend to throw all that information out there because it's not my space. I just know. I just can see it and feel it.
And I think for me, the left-hand framework, and for those of you, I mean, honestly, you got to get to a Diesel Day if you want to experience the full effect of the left-hand framework, because what it does for me, or what it did for me, and it continues to do, because I talk to my kids, it's a reliable compass. I feel like, that where I'm able to deal with, challenges, uncertainty, daunting tasks, shit that I don't want to do, stress, all that stuff. Like the left-hand framework and the mind's mind, which is kind of like the central thing. How would you describe that, the left-hand framework, and how does that kind of accompany the mind's mind? It's just for people to kind of get a better understanding of what that looks like.
Yeah, the rational space needs to have some sort of rubric or some sort of framework or some sort of list or something to attach down, like to do steps, or maybe not steps, and whatever it is, right? We got to have something of that nature to be able to then begin to influence, ultimately, potentially control what's going on for us in the irrational or emotional space, right? And so that all this framework is doing is giving us a couple things that we can just like grab onto that creates a cue to open up some space for rational concepts to come in, give some space for the you to come in. Because right now it's over flooded. There's no space for that to exist. It's not to eliminate what somebody's feeling is absolutely important, right? I don't never want to dismiss what somebody's feeling. And a lot of times when people are feeling something, if you ask them what they think, they can't tell you what they think. And if they do attempt to tell you what they think, all they're doing is explaining, describing their feelings because it's full. So what we're trying to do is like, okay, hey, cool, like grab onto this. It could be deep breathing techniques. It could be meditation. It could be stretching. It could be going for a run. It could be whatever, right? Like all that is to do is to work some space in there so that some cognition, some consciousness, some deliberate thought, some rational stuff can start to come in play also. It's not to dismiss the feelings, it's to actually give the feelings better context. And the combination of the feelings and the rational thought, the calculation, the stuff that makes us human beings, right? What is that? The prefrontal cortex shit, or maybe it's not. I don't know. Pick a place in the brain to exist. Also, I go back to every time I made a bad decision. I go back to every time that I did something that I regret, I'm embarrassed about or shamed about. What was I thinking? I wasn't. I was feeling. I was acting out of impulse. I was acting out of emotion. I was acting out of desire. Who knows? Oh shit! Like that's it. That's what this is about.
Very cool.
Yeah. I mean, that was my absolutely terrible question I asked earlier, which was completely out of context, was essentially kind of that, which was when does Tosh's phone ring the most outside of physical? People know you as the physical guy. So that's why I was like, is it when the 4-year-old shows up and you're just like, what the fuck do I do with life? Because this is outside the parameters. That's what I was, to your point, that's what I was trying to figure out. Like, when do people find themselves in their 3 a.m. on the back trail of life most often being like, okay, I did not think a baby was going to do this to me, help, or is it the business? Is it the boardroom? Like, I didn't really know where it was. I mean, I see it from the relationship side and less of the physical side more often, but I was curious. That's what I was mostly asking.
Yeah. For me, it's my navigating my experiences in life, my traumas. That's where it's at right now. And I avoided that for a greater part of the last 20 years through the physical space. And so then the physical space provided the laboratory for me to start to measure and do some calculations and observe and whatever the right order is for all of that, right? And then now I'm taking what I've come from that, from my physical spaces that I was doing to over-medicate myself so that I didn't have to deal with some of these traumas. And now I'm reversing them, and now I'm applying them back into myself in those spaces, my experiences, my traumas. I'm also using it in relationships to better navigate, to be a better leader, you know, in the positions that I'm in now with running Big Fish and doing Crooked Butterfly and helping mentor other people, right? So that's where it's showing up. People ask me, what's Tosh's next big physical event? And my answer for the last 2 years is, I don't think I'm going to do another big physical event. I got a lot of I've got a lot of work on this other piece, right? And I was overutilizing the harder and harder and harder and harder things to get away from doing that. And then it was like, well, I'm still going to do some physical things, but they're not going to be really, really big. Like, what's bigger than rowing across the ocean? Like, it's out there, but like, what is that taking me away from? And then that experience on the ocean allowed me to really put a lot of this stuff into play in the psychological space, and dealt with a lot of my personal stuff, but some leadership stuff. And that's where I'm going with it now. And I'm actually spinning the mind's mind up, because this isn't something that this framework isn't something that is only or always needed when you're in duress, stress, right? It actually applies towards the positive side as well. And I've got a lot of really cool stuff going on. Like, I check in with my left hand when I'm riding a high, when I'm approaching a high, when I'm coming off of a high. I'm using a lot of when I'm in this orbit of success or harmony. Cool. I'll check in with my left hand, and it helps me even better understand. And so this is where the material is growing now for the last year and probably the next 2-3 years.
It's funny because I've been able to experiment taking your concept and experiment with my family, and you know you always talk about setting conditions, and what I can do as a parent, you know, if I'm looking to get my kids to adopt some of these principles, well, I have to set conditions, and so whether it be in the physical domain or in the abstract, you know, I can get them to think differently and use these principles, apply them, check in, because we have kind of a unified grammar around checking in with our left hand and knowing where we're at, and so that for me as a father, like when I see my kid on the you know, on the ball field when he was playing football this past year. You know, he made a play. You could see his head was down. He was kind of walking to the sidelines all mopey. I yelled out, "Tristan!" And I put up my hand, and I'm like, and this is the call. This is our call sign. Where are you at? And you know, he went like this, and that for him, I'm good. And then I come back to him like, you're good, right? Let's just get back out there and get after it, right? Like, forget about it. You don't have to dwell on that play, right? So it's like developing this shorthand around the left hand with my kids. It's been super cool, man. And
Cool.
I'm truly grateful, man, for all your love and support.
Yeah.
This is cool. For one, I mean, as somebody, I consider myself fortunate to have called you a friend for years. I do love the season of life here and now. The softening, the awareness and the presence of Tosh is super cool. And I'm glad you're embarking on this new physics, because I was like, you were already rad as fuck before. Now you're even more rad. So I guess I have to go for it.
I'm just a fat rad now.
Well, whatever works. You know, got to carry that weight. It's like you said, it's the ultra event of your life. So you got to put on that. You got to pack on that weight. But it's cool that you brought up the positive part of the left hand too, because you know, the point of this podcast is meant to be the infinitely scalable part of it, and really that's not meant to be about business at all. It's kind of a play on words, but it's mostly about like how your behavior and how your relationship with yourself is the most infinitely scalable part of this whole thing, and bringing people on here to expose and essentially share their own pursuit of their own personal vulnerability and exploration of themselves, because like that's the journey into leadership. That's the journey into becoming a better person. That's the journey into building better things, leaving things better behind. And like, those are the infinitely scalable things. And like, so the left hand naturally transitioning to the positive is really cool. You know, and I'm glad that you're touching on that part of it, because absolutely that is the infinitely scalable part of the left hand, no doubt. It's not 3 a.m. in the back trail. It's learning it on 3 a.m. in the back trail. But then to your point, like when you're riding those highs, being like, oh, there it is, right?
Check it in.
That's cool. Totally.
Thanks, Tosh.
Yeah, man. You guys are awesome. It's good to see you.
Punk rock changed our lives.